folks. Welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, with your host, Hurricane H. New day, great show, I would say. All the shows are great, so I can't state that in a particular way, but it's going to be a great show because my guest is great, and he's going to take us to something that we may not know about, and again, bring us closer to this type of therapy, I would say. And again, this topic today we're going to discuss has to do a little bit with mental health, and sometimes people we've had so many shows about mental health, as we know, and there's a lot of ways to deal with mental health and anxiety and all these things, depression, and sometimes people need to be in a clinic to get certain therapies and things like that. Obviously we've talked to doctors about protocols and things like that, what happens and the types of issues that people have. But today we're going to talk to someone who actually co-founded, or he's the CEO and co-founder of Ketamine Clinics Los Angeles, and he will guide us through the work that they do and how they how it came in place. To be honest, and we just need to know what's available and why this is particularly a different approach to, I guess, getting folks better. So without any further ado, I have with me Sam Mandel. Sam, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me, Hurricane. It's nice to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure, man. And definitely, like I said, I kind of gave a brief introduction, but there's a lot more to you and to the work you guys do. So let's talk about your story, because I think you and your dad kind of put this in place and created this particular clinic, but you do have a little bit of a background in the area itself. So let's talk about you, and then we'll go there, to the clinic, concept.
Sure. So yeah, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Ketamine Clinics Los Angeles. We've been providing IV infusions of ketamine for a decade now. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary this month. We're one of the first clinics in the country. And I'd love to talk about the treatment, what it is, how it works, et cetera. But to your point, kind of taking a step back and who am I? Um, I came to this work through personal reasons. I have a lot of friends and family, unfortunately, have struggled with mental health, with addiction, people that we've lost to suicide, both friends and family. And so it's personal work. And I was 12 years old when I started volunteering for a teen-to-teen suicide prevention line, where I took calls from kids a couple days a week after school who were in crisis. And that was my first foray, if you will, into mental health, in a way, working in mental health. Growing up, I was the person that, I was the kid the kids went to when they couldn't talk to the adults about stuff and didn't feel like there were other kids who could get it or understand. I guess I grew up fast, and I was comfortable having difficult conversations that most of my peers weren't. And it's always been that way.
Oh, well, it's I'm listening to you, and it's pretty interesting that you started way early in terms of being, I guess, involved in this work. And the
Mhm.
one thing that that you talked about, teen to teen, and that is something that is becoming more and more, I guess, really just in our face, and it's on reality. Teenage suicide is high. It's crazy, like, just to even think about it. I actually have my son's, friend took his life, and we're talking about someone who was 15 years old. So I
Sorry to
know
hear
how
that.
that it is unbelievable. And I personally have, suicide in the family as well. So I can relate to it is devastating to know someone is getting to a point where they take their life away. And unfortunately, there are sometimes signs, there are no signs, and it's just what it is. I think we all have to do our little fair share to help in hopefully preventing this, tragedy from happening. Many times, and I've had so many discussions, around addiction and mental health, where people actually get those tendencies of, I guess, just suicidal thoughts, right? Ideation, and people get a little bit into that point where of desperation, and they just want to end it all, and sometimes just because they don't have the resources and the help. So I love what you said, that you started early on to try to help and be part of this, to create a solution in that matter, right? And
Yeah.
so let's talk about how did that transit, in terms of the lifespan. You're talking about teenagers, so it took a little minute to actually get the clinic, in play. How did
Oh,
that
for
work?
sure. Look, the traditional model in this country of treating people, but not just within mental health, but healthcare in general, has failed us, is failing us. The Western model in the United States is a failed model. We spend more on healthcare than like the next 10 countries combined, and we have exponentially worse health outcomes. It's embarrassing. We have all this money, technology, smart people, but our system is geared towards profits, not health, and people are suffering and dying as a result. And with mental health, the traditional treatments have failed us with negative side effects, very mediocre solutions for relief, if any. The number of people who are treatment resistant, and there's people that are just desperate for some sort of help, for a solution, for something that works. And ketamine infusion therapy is one of these solutions. It really works in a very different way, both psychologically and through the neurochemical processes in the brain, the mechanism of action, the way that it affects patients, the way that it works is very different and unique from really everything that has come before it. And so it works when nothing else does. And I'm excited to be part of offering something that's innovative and progressive and that offers real hope and healing to people. And there's such a huge, huge need for it.
Well, thank you, Sam. I love the idea of innovation and innovative, concept because, as you said, I mean, we are in probably one of the best, or at least has been the best or greatest nation. But that's a questionable now. A lot of people can probably say, what are you talking about, hurricane? We have lost a little bit of that. But nevertheless, that we're still ahead in a lot of areas. But you're right, we are in a system that is more about, as you said, profit. Now, there's nothing wrong with profit. Business is always good to have, but not on the depends and on the
Yeah,
demise of
but not
freedom.
at the cost and not at the
Uh,
expense of
yeah.
people's lives. I mean, look, if we were the most profitable in healthcare, but also number one in health outcomes in terms of actual chronic disease prevention, reversal, life expectancy, in child in birthing rates, survival rates among newborns, great. Make the money doing the good work and lets everybody win. You know what I mean? You make the drugs that heal the most people, you should be rich. Why not? I'm not anti-money, okay? But to be making the most money and delivering the worst results, among the worst results, it's just an embarrassment. It's
yeah.
it's beyond unethical.
Well, Sam, I do appreciate you being as honest and open about this, but it is the reality. I mean, you're right. I mean, that. I mean, to your point, that's what we would love to have, best outcomes, best results, and yes, if they translate in great profits, why not? It's a good match, it's a good marriage. We'll love that. That's actually the ideal scenario, but it's not. We are in a system, and by the way, it's debatable across because many would say, well, we have a good healthcare system, but we don't. Technically, we don't because there are nations that have a better healthcare system in the first place. But this is not
We're the
about
only
healthcare.
we're the only developed first world country that doesn't have universal health care. I mean,
Yeah, that's.
in
I mean,
one
it's a
form
whole.
or another, you know?
We could have an hour just about that topic about healthcare and how it should be. And you're right, we don't have the basic elements. So again, we are a sick care country more than healthcare.
Yeah.
When you're sick, we take care of business, but we don't go to the root cause of problems. And by the way, this is a theme that comes up over and over in discussions, whether I have discussion with fitness folks or wellness folks, nutrition and medicine, realms. This always comes back that we are more into like, hey, there's a disease, cool. Let's just make sure we get the drugs to suppress whatever diagnose, the symptoms and things like that. Maybe make the person feel a little good, but we're not eradicating the problem. We're not even
Right.
going to the back to the source to remove that because we can prevent a lot of things. Yeah, I mean, the old medicine was preventative. We're not preventative now. We're like post, issues. Things happen, then we'll take care of business, not before. And you're right. And in the mental area, we have so many reasons why we're just basically declining rapidly across every single age line, I would say. I mean, again, we have from the
Yeah.
food we eat, from the information we receive, from the society in general, the way we operate, the way we live, and then the bullying and this. I mean, it starts from early on, and it keeps going and going. It's getting worse now with even the social, so people get excited easily because people tend to criticize everybody at any given moment, and it's just a lot of things. The food we eat is
Well,
not good. I mean, everything.
yeah, I mean our generation is the first one. They're saying the life expectancy is estimated to be shorter than that of our parents. I mean, we're going backwards. We're regressing in terms of human progress and advancement. I mean, we have all this AI and technology and you name it, we're so advanced and sophisticated, but yet we're going backwards in terms of life expectancy and quality of life. One in what is it? I think like 1 in 3 Americans has is obese or has diabetes. Like, I mean, it's incredible. It really is hard to wrap your head around. And if you live in a big city like LA or New York or a more progressive city, you might be in a pocket where you're among a more places, parts of Miami or whatever. You might be more of a fitness crowd or a healthier or more affluent crowd that might seem healthier. But the reality is most of the country is extremely sick. It's really sad, and people are really looking for guidance and support and resources, and they're not really getting very good care.
Well, Sam, thank you for. I mean, that statistic is really scary. The fact that the generation is, expecting to live lesser or less, time frame than
Yeah,
the
shorter
older
life
generation.
expectancy than our parents. I mean, it should be it's always moved in the opposite direction throughout history. Every generation gets a little bit more mileage out of life than the one before. That's the whole point of everything that we're all doing, and the reason people sacrifice for their kids and progress and technology, right, is for us to get healthier, better, do more, and it's at a kind of turning point that's showing clearly what we're doing is not working. And I think it's because the incentives are misaligned.
It's funny because, as you said, with all the technology, with all the stuff that we have, we should be literally ages ahead, and we should be like, curing everything, being able to live, another 100 years easy, and anti-aging reversed, all that stuff. But we don't. I mean, age in reverse. We have not gone there. Although there's a lot of stuff available, the problem is it's minimum access, as you said. Only maybe a few can access some of this stuff and be, in that realm. And even that is not recently true, because you said about 1 or 3 Americans. Actually, I just read something today. I listened to something today that was even worse. It was 1 of 2 adults apparently have a pre-diabetic or diabetes already in the States. That is, I mean,
Yeah, it's hard to wrap your head around.
I gotta go check my blood now because that guy drove me nuts this morning. Like, oh, that means there's a 50-50 shot. That's like high odds. I mean, that's crazy. But it is similarly. I mean, we're talking about diabetes and some chronic, but mental health is just on its own. In I don't know what
It's
the
about one
statistics.
in five. About 1 in 5 Americans are suffering from a mental health condition. Um, one a lot of those, I'd say, for 1/3 of those at least, and I think the numbers are a lot higher, but I think the official numbers are about 1/3 of those are suffering from depression or treatment resistant. So that means that they've tried and not benefited from at least 2 or more, fair trials of traditional treatments, typically medication, oral medication like SSRIs, and not benefited. So, not only do we have a lot of sick people, we have a lot of sick people that aren't even getting even mediocre benefit from the available treatments that are being recommended to them. It's a real crisis. And also to your point earlier, and again, honest, sincere condolences for your you said it was your son's friend who had committed suicide. I mean, it's awful. And the teen suicide rate and depression, mental health issues among children and teenagers right now has gotten much, much worse than it was before. I think they're the fastest growing group in terms of the increase. By the way, suicide has gotten worse and gone up across the board for everyone. over the last 20 years in a way that's pretty scary. And it has grown fastest among that demographic, among teenagers. There's a lot of speculation as to what's contributing to that. Is it, smartphones and social media and, the internet and stuff like this? I think those are all, big contributors among other things. But at the end of the day, regardless of why it's happening, we should be able to get our arms around this and be doing something to move the needle in the other direction, and it's a problem. It's a big problem. More than 45,000 people complete suicide in the United States every single year. More than 45,000. And that number just continues to increase. And by the way, that's the official count of that are irrefutable suicides that are proven as such. It doesn't count the maybes. There's a lot of maybes, the people who overdose on drugs that maybe they did that on purpose and it gets called an accident, but they actually took a lot more on intentionally with the goal of not waking up. People who just take off their seatbelt and decide to drive their car off a bridge or into a tree or something and hope that that's the end of that. And they don't get counted as a suicide. They get called a car accident. Somebody, drinking themselves to death and think, oh, well, that was just, too much alcohol poisoning. So I think the number is way higher than 45,000, but that is the count. And it's a problem.
Sam, one life is one too many, right?
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. So, I mean, these numbers are still unbelievably high. And as you said, what we have in statistic is one thing, what reality could be. Because, like you said, these things can be easily camouflaged through a lot of ways. And
Yeah.
you will not tell what was because you don't talk to these folks to actually find out the
Right.
reason why it happened. I mean, obviously, there's a percentage that's correct. It's an accident. It's an accident. But there's no way for us to know otherwise. And you're right, it is
Right.
crazy. But so Sam, one thing that I know we're going to talk more deep dive on the clinic and the type of
Yeah.
therapies and things and the ketamine therapy specifically. But a lot of folks sometimes when they have a mental I guess diagnosis, well, sometimes they don't even go and get a diagnosis. They just have these things and they live with them. But let's say someone decides to finally go see someone, an expert. There's always that taboo. There's always been that. Like, I don't want to go talk to someone. And, oh my God, you're going to talk to a shrink. Oh my God, you're going to talk to a psychiatrist. Oh my God, you're going to go to, a mental clinic. You're going to be detained. On the other, there's all this stigma about it. That people don't do this. They don't take care of themselves until it's worse. And then many, even when they go to treatment, they might not see themselves getting drugs. And then finally, you have the ones that actually get some sort of medication to kind of eradicate or at least calm down whatever symptoms they have. But either one of those, as you said, even when you get to that point, you're not getting the results. And that's actually all these things that are enumerated now are kind of like, still, scary to even think about that. Besides the social stuff and the historic, fear from seeking help, and seeing someone to help you. There's always that I don't want the drugs because again, people hear about the drugs and the outcomes and the methadones that go as a treatment and all the stuff and it's horrible and people I get in these stories sometimes and they're just kind of like I'm not going to do anything and they just keep doing and then addiction just keeps going for those that have any type of addiction and the thing is like they're just extremely sick and there's sometimes no coming back. Then the other part is I think you mentioned PTSD. You got people that actually come from like our veterans. That's another thing. I mean, the PTSD standards there are so high. It's not even funny. I mean, people come in, 90% of them, they have some sort of level of PTSD, if not, the majority. And that's all requiring some sort of, immediate rescue, immediate help. But we're not getting that. People are not getting exactly what they need. And it's tragic. Now, I love that you need that created a new way, an innovative way, and that's what we're going to highlight today specifically. So what kind of really patients do you get? I mean, do you get them in an early stage and an advanced stage, or is it post all the other level when they just basically are in a complete desperation?
Yeah, so we've been doing this for 10 years and it's changed a lot over the years. When we first started offering ketamine infusions for mental health in 2014, we saw a lot of people who were coming to us as a last resort. They had pretty much tried, virtually everything else out there. Many medications, ECT, sometimes TMS therapy, and all kinds of other things as well. Over time, the treatment has kind of moved up the ladder in terms of in the treatment algorithm, what's considered a good time to try this. And so now we do still see a lot of treatment resistant cases. A lot of people have tried a lot of things, but we also see more and more increasingly higher numbers of people who are coming to us as a first line who don't want to take medications like SSRIs. They don't want to take pills every day. They don't want to deal with the negative side effects like weight gain and loss of libido. They don't want to wait 4 to 6 weeks to see if they benefit and then have to increase their dose and maybe add a second adjunct medication and wait another 4 to 6 weeks and go through this cycle of this really generally not very good way of trying to address their issues. And so with, ketamine infusions, people do a series of 6 infusions over 3 weeks. They're about an hour long each. They're done in the clinic. We have a really beautiful office, great team, diverse skill set, psychiatrists, psychiatric nurse practitioners, registered nurses, administrative staff. There's over a dozen of us here. And people get a lot of really individualized attention from multiple specialties. And in 6 visits in 3 weeks, they feel great, often in much less time than that. Typically, within 1 week, people start feeling better. So this treatment works more quickly and it produces a better quality of relief. People usually feel really, really good and have a restoration of a sense of self and pleasure, more compassion for themselves and for other people, and just feel good. With the SSRIs and often these other drugs that people are taking, MAOIs, SNRIs, mood stabilizers, etc., people feel like a shell of themselves. They feel numb. They feel locked in. Maybe the floor of their negative emotions has been lifted, but the ceiling of their positive emotions has been lowered as well. So they're really in a narrower, plane of existence, and that's not a nice place to be. So they get a better quality of relief with this treatment. And it has none of the negative side effects that the traditional medications have. None. So it really is better in every way. Also, it works 83% of the time in our clinic. We have an 83% success rate. These other drugs are like 35% effective most of the time. So, and if they work, they are short-lived. I mean, people get a benefit for a year or two. They play with their doses. They try some other meds. They gotta do something different then. It just stops working for them. So this treatment, when I say this treatment, ketamine infusion therapy, is really uniquely effective for people, and it's essentially more advantageous for most people dealing with a mood disorder than really anything else out there.
Sam, thank you for breaking it down. And, and I love the concept of having, all the different multidiscipline levels, within the clinic where people can have an actual good orientation from, diagnosis, from talking to a specialist to having the nurses there that can understand how to operate the whole thing. And then you have the staff. Now, you treat basically depression, anxiety, PTSD, suicidal, ideation, all of the above. Now, do you get referred, clients, patients, or you actually people come into the clinic and then they get their own diagnosis within the clinic?
Both. So we get a lot of people find us online. A lot of people are referred to us. If they have an existing diagnosis, we can usually just do an assessment and then start treating them. If they don't, then we can do a psychiatric evaluation and then diagnose them accordingly. Most people come to us already with a diagnosis, but in some cases we'll do that more formal and more comprehensive evaluation of them.
Perfect. Now,
And we
let's
do, and just to be clear, we do require a diagnosis. So we don't just take, walk-ins off the street. We can't treat people who are just curious to try it. We do need to confirm an actual condition that we're treating. Yeah.
basically, I mean, you work with other referral sources and people actually, or they just come in because they just basically couldn't get any outcomes that were, probable, positive, and they came to you because now you have a whole new innovative way, and that's really what you guys are, presenting to the audiences, that there's just something new, different. Like, I love what you said, 83%, of success rate is much better than 35%. Any given that, take those odds, right? It's pretty good stuff. And certainly you said there's none of the bad effects or the aftermath, negative, outcomes that you can get from these drugs and things like that. So I mean, it's a win-win. I mean, it sounds, awesome as just to hear about it. And I'm sure you got testimonials and things like that, people that have gone through the program. And also, it doesn't sound like it's a long time. you're talking about a few weeks, of treatment, and then they basically are pretty much good to go for, the rest of their life, hopefully. Now, I'm sure there's some sort of follow-up that takes place, here and there to make sure that they're, always on point and things that happening. Am I getting that correct?
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely not a cure, it's a treatment. And so we wouldn't tell people that they would necessarily be good for life. I mean, some people could be in theory, but it's not likely. Life is gonna kick you around. You're gonna lose
Of course.
a relationship, you're gonna lose a loved one, you're gonna lose a job, you're gonna have challenges, issues with things, existential crisis, you name it, whatever. Things are gonna come up and you're gonna have issues with anxiety, with depression. That's just natural, really. Generally, those things can be short-lived, situational. People can kind of get through them and get out of them. But especially for somebody who's dealing with a mental health condition, it could be triggering or kind of put them back into a spot, or just frankly, their symptoms could come back at some point, even if those other kinds of circumstances that I mentioned don't happen. And so that's okay, and that's quite natural. And when that happens, people do come back for follow-up treatment. And it's usually just a pair of boosters, we call them, for maintenance. And it's one or two infusions, generally two infusions a day or two apart. And that is going to extend their initial benefit. And when they come back and how often really varies widely patient to patient. It could be 2 to 3 months later on average that they would come back for two infusions and they would get another, 2 or 3 months out of that. Or it could be 6 months. It could be on the long end, 2 years. And we've had a number of patients who have either not come back at all because they felt like they got what they needed and they were good. And we've had a number of patients who have actually come back after 2 years and said, just from one initial series. So that really actually got me through that entire time, but started to have a hard time again. Feel like I need a little bit of a kind of a tune-up, if you will, and they return for that. So, and then of course on the other end of the spectrum, on the short end, we have patients who only get several weeks as well. They said, "Wow, I felt great, but it only lasted for 3, or 4 weeks," and so it's disappointing. At least we know we found something that works for you when other things didn't, and it just seems like you might need to come back and have treatment a little bit more frequently than we would like. But at least we got something that works. It's important to remember for a lot of people, there's literally nothing that works. So,
Mhm.
we want it to last for a very long time for them. And we recommend, certain pillars of wellness and lifestyle optimization so that they can maintain their benefit longer. But at the end of the day, even if it doesn't last as long, if it works, we definitely consider that a real success for that person.
Well, thank you, Sam. And frankly, as you said, life happens, right? I mean, triggers are going to be all around us, and if you were, pretty much prone to it the first time, there's a good chance you're going to get, easily, reset if there's the right circumstance. So the idea is, I love what you said, the lifestyle, recommendation and changes, and maybe removing some, folks from that environment can help them, I guess, maintain a healthier self. But now, Sam, I get the therapy, the infusion, those are clear, but well, what is ketamine? I mean, ketamine. How does that work specifically? I guess everybody is probably like, watching, and we want to know, what does that? How is it different? Is it a medication? Is it a drug? What kind of how does it work in the system?
Yeah, yeah. So ketamine is actually an anesthetic. It's a medicine. It was synthesized in the 60s, FDA approved in 1970, and it was among the most widely used anesthetics in the world. It's also used in veterinary medicine, so some people know of it as a horse tranquilizer or a cat tranquilizer. It's also used as an analgesic, as a pain reliever. Some people know of it as that. It's a pretty ubiquitous drug with a lot of uses. It's also used recreationally. Some people know of it as Special K, as a street drug. And it's the same drug all around, but it's got these different uses. And it really depends on how much is taken, what the mindset is at the time, the setting that it's taken in, the route of administration, how it's taken. These are the things that really dictate its different identities. So in our case, we're using IV infusions, and we're providing a low dose and a slow gradual dose. Whereas in sedation for surgery, it's an IV push. It'll be used as a larger amount all at once. Or when somebody takes it on the street, maybe they're snorting a powder and they're doing a lot larger of a dose to get a certain kind of high or a rush, which is different than a slow gradual infusion that takes about an hour long. And the way it works is really two main, mechanisms. One is neurochemically, the effects it has on the brain, and then the other is the experiential component, so how it affects people psychologically. This ketamine's a dissociative anesthetic, and really it's a psychedelic. It produces a kind of psychedelic experience for people, and that experience can help them to gain insight and perspective and a better sense of themselves, of the negative thoughts, negative patterns and loops that they have in their life, past trauma, reprocessing of it, reframing it, and better understanding who they are and their role in it, forgiving themselves, forgiving other people. It's very, very powerful in a lot of ways psychologically. And then, neurochemically, it actually is producing measurable growth in the brain and better brain connectivity. It doesn't just treat, symptoms in terms of putting a Band-Aid on things. It actually gets at the root causes of issues. It can increase dendrite density, connectivity, it can increase neurogenesis, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, neurotransmitter glutamate. I mean, there's a whole bunch of complex processes that are going on in the brain when somebody has ketamine infusion, and we're still researching them and looking to better understand them. But, I'm throwing a lot of words out there that probably don't mean anything to most people. But I think if I could put it in layman's terms, what I'm trying to say is that ketamine can help to cause new growth in the brain. It can help to better balance the neurochemistry of the brain and actually increase connectivity among neurons, among brain cells, and help the brain to function better. And that is exciting. That is a pretty radical thing in the treatment of mental health.
You're talking, and I'm just looking at those synapses just firing up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get it all like spiked up in there. And again, it sounds like you guys are onto something that's terrific. And again, I love what you said. This is not something that doesn't exist. There's different ways that it exists, but you found the formula, a way to administer it that it does great work within the body in both levels, right? And there is no addiction to it, and that's the other part. And love what you said, that it gives people the ability, the psychedelic ability, is where you're kind of getting perspective on things, and it's a little different from the standard zombie drugs when you're basically just like zombied out.
Yeah.
You're not there, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Very different kind of relief. And I'm glad you said no addiction because, yeah, there's some people that get that a little bit mixed up because some people do abuse ketamine recreationally, and so people get afraid that maybe they'll be addicted or they'll become an abuser, will use ketamine user or whatever. Ketamine's not addictive in the way that opioids or alcohol or nicotine is addictive. It does not create a physical dependency. Some people might use it as a means of escape in the same way that some people use chocolate or ice cream or jumping out of airplanes or sex as a means of escape. But those things are not inherently addictive. They're just ways that people are trying to avoid their reality. And ketamine is the same thing. You can use it, some people do, as a way to try to escape, but you're not going to take it and get hooked. You're not going to crave it. If anyone's ever used nicotine, whether it was cigarettes or vapes or whatever, they know if you get into it and you don't have what you want for a few hours even, you can get really cranky. You can get a headache. You can get irritable. You can start to feel physically not well. It's not like that. Ketamine is not like that, even for the people who might be using it recreationally. It's just different.
Basically, it's you long to the feeling of what it does, where, or like you're just in a better place, and that's why people would probably want, as you said, it's like I love my movies and they keep me calm, so I'm just gonna keep watching more movies. I mean, there's so many ways people kind of like get rid of stress, in their own ways. Working out can be just as bad. I mean,
Sure.
if I don't get my pump for the day, I'm not in a good place, right? So it's kind of like, but to your point, it's not opioid level or like any of the addictions, that you hear in terms of alcohol stuff,
Yeah.
because that's like in your blood. If you don't get it, you don't get a pump in there, you don't get a fix, you're completely off, and you can lose it. In this case, that's not the case. So I appreciate it. And again, I just wanted to clarify that about, because again, addiction is usually what people are afraid of. Like, what is this? Like, because I mentioned methadone, right? So people, it's like to weed out from drugs, you get into these things, but there are a lot of discussions about whether it's worth it, is it not, is it going to help, is it the opioid, problem, and so all these things are in the minds of people that are watching or listening right now, or at least, you know, and that just one thing I want to, just give to the audience is that you might be not the one specifically affected by any type of drugs, but in our world, you will come across people in a day-to-day life. Doesn't matter where you are. There's someone we know or someone we know who knows somebody else who may be inflicted by this. This is something that everybody's experiencing, especially in our world here. I mean, and I think it's all over the world. This is not just in the US specifically. I think the drugs are everywhere.
Yeah.
So you have protocols, and now let's say someone finishes the treatment, and there is a follow up, of course. Now, are there any, I guess, specific programs that you put them in terms of like just getting better? I know you said about the lifestyle. So what that looks like actually?
Yeah, so I mean, we advocate for, good sleep hygiene, good nutrition, fitness, talk therapy, and an interpersonal relationship, intimate relationship, with a peer. Those are kind of the five main pillars. And, there are other things we can recommend as well, like, mindfulness, meditation, things like that. But the others are really the kind of core essentials. And so we advocate for that for patients to get involved in talk therapy and to really take good care of themselves to be able to maintain a good benefit long term. Those are the big ones that we recommend. And then, we monitor people, we follow up with them, we continue to show our care and our support, and obviously, if needed, booster infusions for maintenance.
Thank you. So, Sam, you do also offer psychiatric medication management and, as you mentioned, TMS or transcranial magnetic stimulation.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So, can you expand a little bit on those things as other services that are
Yeah,
available?
Yeah, so after, a decade of really specializing in just ketamine infusions, we decided to add some additional services. So about a year and a half ago, we added psychiatric medication management, which is just general psychiatry, and, management of people's prescriptions. And we did that because for two main reasons. One is we wanted to provide more comprehensive care, and there were people that were needing that service and, not offering it. We could only refer out. They would often have to wait a long time or pay a lot of money or not get good care. So now we offer it in-house and we're able to do it quickly and in a cost-effective way. So we went in network with insurance in order to do that. So we now take 10 of the largest insurance networks in California, and that really helps people who don't have a lot of cash for treatment to be able to still get help. Also, we can really cover all aspects of what a patient might need instead of just giving them ketamine and then someone else just does their meds and someone else just does their therapy. And then that care team is kind of fragmented and they don't really get as much of a benefit as if most or all of that was done under one roof, right? With that kind of collaboration around that person. Um, and then, we've also just found that even though, ketamine does work better for most people in most cases, these other medications are still relevant tools. They still have their place in the treatment process for people, and some people still really need some of them. Also, a lot of people might want help getting off of these drugs. And, so then we have people who can help to kind of wean them off. And then we've also added a transcranial magnetic stimulation, which is an FDA-approved treatment for depression and OCD, and it is using, magnetic waves to stimulate parts of the brain that are underactive due to depression, usually in the prefrontal cortex, dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex. And there are some other parts of the brain that can be stimulated that are for off-label protocols. But for the FDA-approved protocol for depression, that's where it is stimulated. And that can really help people a lot. It doesn't have any of the negative side effects of prescription pills. And it also can work quickly, safely, effectively. It does take longer than ketamine and is more of a time commitment, and it takes longer to see results. So usually people are coming in every single day for 6 weeks. So it is a little bit more, time intensive, but insurance covers it. And so that's a great advantage to it. And that's something that has really been good for a lot of people as well.
Well, I as you were talking, I was like really getting a nice little smile because I'm an insurer by trade. And
Uh-huh.
and I know it's always difficult and the cost is always going to be a question. I think you beat me to it because I was
Yeah.
going to ask, like,
Yeah.
what happens to the cost, because these things sound expensive. But I love that you said that you are part of the networks and the major, carriers out there, you take, which means that people will have access. Now, does that also apply to people with Medicare and or Medicaid, or both, or did this is just private commercial insurance only?
We do take Medicare. We don't take Medicaid.
Oh, that's fine, again, but that's great to
Yeah.
know because I mean, I live in the Medicare space and Medicaid space, so
Okay.
that's always
Yeah.
like a question that I ask, because Medicare obviously is the it's a different product itself compared to Medicaid, and one is it got it's more like income based or resources. The other one is more about age and or disability. So just for those folks that are watching and listening,
Yeah,
so
and I'll
different
say,
groups.
I mean, taking Medicare is a lot of work. It's
I know.
yeah, it can be difficult, but we do it because there really is a great need in our area for mental health services that are good that will accept Medicare, and so we take care of that population. Yeah.
Oh, listen, yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, that's usually, I mean, those two areas are usually like, Now I'm assuming people can also self-pay if they don't have
Sure.
insurance or whatever,
No
you know.
problem.
Yeah, I mean, again, now it is a clinic in Los Angeles only, right? That at least for now, that's
For
what
now,
we're,
yeah.
yeah.
We have one location in Culver City in Los Angeles, so on the west side of LA. And I think we will have other locations, though most of them to start will be around the LA area and probably then beyond in California. We'll see if we decide to branch outside of California. I guess anything in the future is possible.
Well, Sam, talking about that, I mean, people are watching right now globally, and if someone is a different state, I mean, can they get referred to you guys? If their providers see the value of your services, or are there similar services in other states that you guys work with, and cross refer to each other?
Yeah, they don't even need a referral. I mean, we'll take anyone who's a good fit that we assess as a good fit if they want to come to us. We have people, I mean, I just saw one of our patients the other day is coming from New Zealand. We have people
Wow.
come from all over the world, so yeah, if you want to travel, that's fine. It used to be much more common than it is now, as there's more clinics than there used to be, more ketamine clinics. So more people are going to places that are closer to them. But a lot of people still know because of our reputation and the quality of the work that we do, people would rather come here and travel to us, and that's always an option if people have the means.
All right. Well, listen, I mean that's awesome to know that you are open, and I love the idea that there's no referral required. Now, I'm assuming from the insurance side, you need authorizations for these services for mental health, right? Or I guess there's a refer and authorization process.
Yeah, so ketamine is cash pay, so there's no issue there with that on med management. Also, no real issue with that. It's pretty straightforward as far as a patient coming in. TMS does have a lot more paperwork around it, a lot more requirements to meet. There is a pre-approval kind of prior authorization process, getting people cleared. There's a lot more criteria that needs to be met before insurance will pay for it.
Listen, I mean, it's still music to my ears because I mean, I think at least the people in the LA area or California can benefit. I mean, they can come to you guys
Oh,
and get,
absolutely.
can get that. And I'm hoping that maybe somewhere else soon enough you'll have more locations around the nation and just expand from there, maybe a worldwide. You never know. I'm always hopeful. I mean, again, you've started, in a little over a decade, and I mean, just about a decade, now, and that's a pretty decent time frame. Now let me ask you a question. I know we've gone through the pandemic. Have you seen an increase in throughout the pandemic in terms of people with depression, anxiety, and all these diagnoses? Just curious.
Yeah, definitely. At the height of the pandemic, instances of depression and anxiety, doubled and tripled. Um, Substance abuse, child abuse, spousal abuse, all, doubled and tripled. I mean, everything went way up. I think it's probably, normalizing a little bit, but there's still a lot more. I mean, everyone has a kind of collective PTSD from everything we've been through. We all are most of us are dealing with heightened levels of anxiety, especially social anxiety, and people still haven't, a lot of people haven't really quite returned to normal, whatever that means, whatever their normal is, you know.
New
And
normal.
yeah, so sick of that phrase, the new normal, the new normal.
Like,
Yeah,
what's the old normal, right?
yeah. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I think, that's the silver lining of the pandemic is that mental health issues are much more relatable and widespread. It's really bad that they're more widespread, but I guess again, the kind of silver lining of that is that it's less stigmatized. More people understand and can relate firsthand to what it means to be crippled by anxiety, to be dealing with a lot of issues around PTSD. I mean, there's a certain level of understanding and destigmatizing that's gone on and that's going on now that I do think is really beneficial for people to be able to reach out, get help, be understood by those around them, and also to understand the people around them.
Thank you, Sam. Now, quick question. Age groups. I mean, do you pretty much work with variety of ages, or there's a limit, as to who can? I mean, maybe not children, only adults, or it doesn't matter?
Our youngest patient was 9, and our oldest was 94. We've seen everyone in between. Typically we don't treat children. We do make exceptions sometimes. Generally it's 18 and up, and I would say most patients are in the 18 to 65 range. But those outliers I mentioned, we've had, a couple that are at those more extreme ends of the spectrum on both sides. And at the end of the day, we're here to help people.
Well, I have to say, as the CEO of such an operation, and just how does it feel? I mean, to be able to help all these people, man, it's got to be a great feeling that you are. I think you live in what we discussed earlier, which is making good outcomes while still managing a business is a good balance, and it's a good way to actually feel good about what you do.
Absolutely. I mean that's the thing. I would say, you don't have to like there's this idea that like you either have to be a good person or make money, and you can't you can't do both, you know. It's so ridiculous. It's just, yeah, you can absolutely have a viable, successful business and do right by people and provide great care and really, strive to deliver value to people and profit. You don't have to choose between those two things. That's the one thing I wish more people understood and embraced, frankly.
So just another question, what is maybe some story that you can share with us of one of your patients that really just kind of like, you changed their world and they just cannot thank you enough? Is there such a story? I'm sure there is, but
Oh, countless, countless. Yeah, I mean, so many come to mind. I mean, we had a patient who was very treatment resistant, had tried all the medications out there, had 2 rounds of ECT. ECT caused permanent memory loss for her. She forgot how to write her own name. She forgot her own wedding day. She lost a lot of really important memories. Of course, that made her symptoms, her condition even worse because now she's feeling like terribly depressed and is not able to function as well. And she was very treatment refractory, treatment resistant, had really tried pretty much everything. When she came to us and had infusions, and from her very first infusion, she immediately felt the weight lifted. She felt the fog clear. And the mean, nasty voice in her head that was playing this negative self-talk disappeared and has not returned since. And she is thriving. She's able to be a great mother again. She's able to be a great wife. She was a very talented opera singer before she got so debilitated by her depression that she was unable to perform anymore. After her infusions with us, she was able to return to singing and performing. She started an opera company. She produces, directs, and stars in her own shows and is super talented, successful, loving life. And she still comes in. I swear, I'm not making this up. I saw her today, literally out in the waiting room today, and said hello to her. And she is an inspiration, and she's living an amazing life. And life is not perfect, and she still has bad days, and she still needs follow-up infusions. But this saved her life. And I mean, it's like the greatest feeling in the world to be a part of a team that can produce that kind of results for people, and not just for them, but with them, that can support them in getting that result for themselves. Because we empower people to be part of the healing process for themselves and to get their own healing for the divine healer within themselves to be a part of the process. We're not fixing them. We're not doing this to them. We're not doing it for them. We're doing it with them.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, that's a very heartwarming, story there, and I mean, it's real, and I love what you said. I mean, when you know that you've made a difference in somebody's life, and you really give them a second shot at their who they were meant to be in life, and they are doing that, and you're helping them, going through it, and they're thriving. So thank you. Now, I have to say, you're in LA. I mean, you're talking about Hollywood, and a lot of stress stuff out there. So I know that there's some celebrities and other people that are just going, in a tough, world out there. I mean, it's pretty difficult. So your work is just needed there, as much as it's probably needed everywhere. But I'm sure you're going to have a lot of, folks that may be needing the work, and certainly you probably have treated some folks. Of course, obviously we're not asking who they are, but I know that that is a very, I guess, high need area, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about celebrities. I mean, even people in general. It's LA is a very dense, city, just like New York. And I think we all need some level of assistance, at any point, because our lives, just have too much bombardment with everything around us. So,
absolutely. Yeah,
all right.
absolutely.
Well, Sam, listen, we're coming to the end of the show. I think you've covered quite a bit of all the technicalities, all the things, and all the merits of the work that you do. And I mean, I really thank you so much for being with us. Is there anything you want to leave our audiences with before we close our show today?
Yeah, I just want people to know that I want people to know that there's hope, that whatever you're going through, whatever you've tried, and whatever you think about your current situation, it can get better if you don't give up, if you just hang in there, and if you keep searching and keep trying and just keep going, ketamine infusions work. There's other exciting treatments as well. If you're concerned about things like geography because you can't come to my clinic, that's okay. There's other people out there. If you're worried about price, that's okay. There's treatments that are covered by insurance like TMS. If you're whatever reasons why you think you're a lost cause, I just want to tell you you're not. And there are so many solutions out there, and there are so many new things that are coming. Other psychedelics, MDMA assisted psychotherapy is going to be FDA approved this year. Psilocybin, there's ayahuasca, LSD, DMT, ibogaine. There's retreat centers, there's clinics, there's pills, there's infusions, there's ceremonial things, there's medicalized things. There's so much going on right now being developed that's available to you, and new research and new breakthroughs all the time. So just because what you've been through or tried hasn't worked does not mean that there is no hope for you. So I just want to tell people, keep fighting.
I love it. That's a powerful message. Thank you, Sam, so much, because I think that's where people can sometimes they lose hope because they don't think that there is something out there. And you just listed a whole yeah, that's a pretty long list of things that people can do and help. And yes, folks, anywhere. And by the way, we're talking about the States, but I'm sure in any type of country there is some level of new stuff that's happening, and sometimes it costs whatever, but there is help, and don't give up hope. There's always a way out if you have the hope and you can seek the assistance. And you know what, you're worth it. Your life is worth it. Your family is worth it. Live your life. You have plenty of potential out there. Anybody watching or listening, we need you. We want you in this world. You have great things that you can be achieving. And I have stories that I've, and different shows that we've had of people who have literally gone to the point of suicide, and they came back and they are making a difference in this world. And anyone watching or listening, if you are going through any type of depression, anxiety, all these things that could lead to a dead end, well, know that there is a light at the end of tunnel. Things will be better. So thank you so much, Sam, for really giving us that pitch of hope there. It just gives me a pump right there. I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, just listening to it. I mean, knowing that these are things that are available. And I think that's really the problem. Sometimes people just don't know what's available.
Right.
And and that's hilarious. And I love what you're doing out there. I mean, you're obviously promoting your clinic, but at the same time, you're promoting hope and the services and the solutions that are out there for people. And again, geography is only a flight away. I mean, and people, let's put it this way: you'll probably spend money, on all these other things. Maybe you want to just go to something that works, and you can do that. And sometimes we have the money to spend on other things that may not be as important, and your health is going to be the best thing, and mental health is probably even better. So if you have a good mental health, you can work everything else, and vice versa. Everything ties in together. So
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm not promoting ketamine and saying ketamine helps because I have a ketamine clinic. The reason I have a ketamine clinic is because ketamine helps.
I love
You know
it.
what I mean? I'm doing this work because this is really helping to change people's lives. It's not the other way around.
No,
Yeah.
no. Well, thank you. And again,
Yeah.
always good to clarify, because
Yeah, yeah,
people
yeah.
can read anyone. But I love it. I mean, there's something out there that works, and you
Yeah.
created a system that people can benefit from. And that by the way, that's exactly. I mean, we have a lot of things in nature that work, but where to find them and who's going to help you get them? That's always the challenge. And you have provided the platform. You have
Yeah,
provided
and
this.
unfortunately, most of many of them, even most, have been made illegal.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, you're in California. I mean, your laws are pretty tough, man.
Yeah,
you know,
and in the US in general, I mean, cannabis, marijuana is still a Schedule One drug federally, despite the fact that the majority of the states have legalized it for recreational use. It's still Schedule One federally. That means in the scheduling of drugs, that means that is the highest level, like with heroin. We're talking about pot, meaning that it is high abuse potential, high addiction potential with no medicinal benefit. That is insane. Today in 2024, that's the law. It doesn't make any sense.
it's funny because that true story, Simon. I know we're about to wrap up, but in the insurance space, I had kind of like wanted to get the some cannabis approval or CBD things like that into our benefit design, because we wanted to maybe tackle the opioid crisis, and maybe tackle the pain management for our seniors and the cancer and all this stuff. And in the state it was easy, but you can't get it through because the feds have not approved it. It's not Medicare approved yet. So there you have it. I mean, and that's really a challenge. I mean, maybe Medicare advocacy groups and things like that can actually talk about this and make it, even if it's not the cannabis level, but some of the components like the CBD and all these things can be. And again, these are the things that unfortunately not happening yet, but the states are getting there. So at least from the state level, you have some leeway. But you mentioned FDA, which means that those are the things that have been approved already federally. So at least that's a good thing. But again, we're a long way from home, when it comes to these out, solutions. And certainly, it's just a matter of time, hopefully sooner than later. All right, man. So, Sam, thank you so much for being with us, man. I had a terrific time with you, dude. I enjoyed
Yeah,
this
likewise.
discussion.
Yeah, Hurricane, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, my pleasure, dude. And folks, there you have it. I mean, we've had great discussions today, about, what's available. If you're in the LA area, you know where to go. If you know someone that needs help, you know where to send them, and it's available. It's covered to a degree. I mean, you have a way out, folks. So let's not hope. And if you're around the world, maybe if you are a provider somewhere, and or a business person, maybe there's something you can do somewhere else around the world. I don't know, maybe you can open a clinic, maybe contact Sam, and you guys partner up and open up around the world as well. There's opportunity there, folks. I mean, you're the expert, somebody else wants to have the expertise, maybe you guys can collaborate. That's another thing. I mean, this is a network opportunity where people can actually help each other to help others, and there's always a good feel about that when you do it. So that's it, folks. American Age. We'll be talking again. New day, new show, topic. Bye for now.